what is EFT tapping?
Right, so EFT tapping has actually been around since about the 1980s. It was created by somebody called Gary Craig, and he used it to start with for soldiers with PTSD. And
Oh,
he created an algorithm of tapping on different parts of your body. So tapping on the side of your hand, your eyebrow points, side of your eye, under your nose, your chin, your collarbone, under your arm, and then the top of your head. And they're the main tapping points. And you tap on them while expressing how you're feeling. So if especially if you've got negative emotions, then actually it really helps to be able to acknowledge those. It helps your body, it sends calming signals to your brain. So when you tap, it helps to it's been proven to reduce your cortisol levels, which is responsible for our stress. So when we're stressed, when we're feeling anxious and worried, then we produce more cortisol. But by tapping, it helps to reduce our cortisol levels and therefore makes us feel calmer and able to make decisions and think about what we're doing. Tapping also helps you to link into your subconscious about things that you may have had, which have been traumas or things in the past, which therefore influence how we then approach a new situation because we go back to how we've done things previously. But it's really easy to learn. I've just like the tapping points I've just shown you are the main points. You tap on them, you say how you're feeling, and yeah, it helps you to feel calmer. It sends those calming signals to your brain. And then as there's been more research recently by Pat Carrington into then tapping in positives as well. So I feel like this, but I choose to feel like this, or I choose to do this. And that can be really positive and empowering as well. So yeah, it's gained in popularity recently. There's research going into tapping all the time, all around the world. Countries all over the world are producing research into the effects of it, mainly because it's so effective, it's so impactful.
okay.
It's now recognised by NICE, like the National Institute of Accredited Therapies in England. So it
Oh,
can
wow.
now be doctors can now suggest tapping as something that people could have to be able to support and to help them. So there's lots of benefits into it. It's got more celebrity status recently. So people like Fern Cotton, you might have seen Boy George tapping in the jungle when he was in there. So there's different people which are starting to do tapping. Oprah Winfrey, and so it's starting to get more known because different people are starting to do it.
And the fact that celebrities are doing it is that helps to sort of show people how the benefits of
Yeah.
it. Because I didn't know anything about tapping and what it is until you reached out to me and I saw your website and I saw on there that that's what you've been looking into, that's what you've been doing. So I don't know anything about tapping, but now just telling me about the effects on your subconscious and your
Yeah.
negative feelings and how people with PSD has used them. That's something that's really interesting actually, in a psychological and physiological way. So what
Yeah.
drew you to mindfulness and EFT tapping?
So, well, I think it's probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, we had an inset training day with our consortium of schools. There was probably about 10, 11 schools who all gathered together in this big hall for a training, and there were hundreds of teachers there. And this person stood at the front and talked to us about mindfulness. And then she did a practice with the whole hall. And I was just like, it was like I zoned everybody else out. And for those 5 minutes, I just felt this real peace inside me. And I was just like, wow, there's something in this. I need to find out more about it. So she recommended Mark Williams' book, Finding Peace in a Frantic World. I've read that several times, and it came with like a CD of different meditations that you could do. So I did that, went through it all, really enjoyed it. My school then put on an MBSR course, so mindfulness-based stress reduction course. And there was 8 of us. It was open to whoever wanted to go. 8 members of staff decided to go, and it was really, really good. Very different to do it following it with the book because you had the discussion that was around it as well, and different people's experiences. And having more of a guided practice in a held space felt very different. And after doing the book, reading the book and doing some things, I had a lesson observation. And I've worked in my school for a little while. My head teacher has observed me loads of times. And she came in, and I used to get really wound up about lesson observations. Because you want to get it right, don't you? You want it to be just so. And
We all do, yeah.
yeah, you all do. And you feel like it's a bit of a judgment. What if it goes wrong? What are people going to think? And this time, I was really calm. And I spoke
Wow.
to her afterwards. She was like, what's different? You know, I've seen you teach lots of times. What's different? I was like, it's mindfulness. I'm practicing mindfulness every day. And I just feel more calm. I just feel better in myself. And I'm not worrying about things as much. So I went on and carried on doing mindfulness. Then I found tapping online, actually. So I saw
Okay.
Jessica Ortner. The Nick and Jessica and Alex Ortner are part of the tapping solution. They have a big organization in America. They do lots to promote tapping, lots of great work. And I'd seen Jessica Ortner online doing a tapping video. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. She's got a book out, which I read, and Nick Ortner's got a book out, which I read his book as well. And I found it really interesting. The more I learned, the more I wanted to find out about it. So I went and did a course and trained to be a tapping practitioner. I did a few courses and trained to be a tapping practitioner and just found it hugely beneficial. So, and then trained to be a mindfulness teacher and do children's mindfulness and children's yoga. So I've done lots of different
Oh,
things
wow.
and it's just enriched how I feel about teaching, and it just brings something different, I think, to my teaching and how I experience teaching now.
That I love the fact that you've done mindfulness in terms of for children and yoga for children, because I think that's something that's really big in the schools in terms of mental health for our kids and the anxieties that they're going through. So do you implement that in your school, or are you looking to maybe do that in the future?
Yeah, so we do. We have four members of staff who are trained to teach yoga. We've had different members of staff who have done mindfulness courses. So we'd run one initially, but actually I'm qualified, and so is my head teacher qualified to teach mindfulness as well. So we've run staff courses and parent courses for people for mindfulness, and then
Oh,
we're
wow.
yeah, and then we're starting to see different ways and we can incorporate it in the classroom. So I use it regularly within my classroom, and it's helping other people to be able to find ways to do it in their classrooms as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, as a mum, when I get emails from my child's primary school about certain events that are happening, especially with anxiety and helping parents understand mental health around their kids and the anxiety they may suffer, they're normally in the morning at 9 o'clock, and I'm working as I'm a teacher myself. So I get really frustrated that I can't access those things for my son. So do you think maybe in terms of trying to get more parents involved, could there be like a remote thing that could be run from schools, maybe in
Yeah,
the afternoon
that
or
would be
after work
great.
hours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last year when we were doing the class I had last year, we did lots of work. I was teaching year two, and they get to a point in year two where actually they all start to be more themselves, and therefore sometimes they start to fall out with their peers a little bit more.
Mm.
And parents were finding at home that all of a sudden they were finding their feet, and there was a difference. And so I sent home with the parents different ideas that we'd be trying in class for mindfulness and tapping, and encourage the children to be the experts so that they were then able to share with their parents some of the strategies that they liked the best. And that had a really positive response actually from parents, because their children were then able to share with them what they've been doing.
Wow.
Because I think what's hard, I think, with anything, whether you run it in person or online, is that actually people are really busy. And parents are working and they're trying to do the best that they can at any one time. Everyone's trying to do the best they can at any one time. And it's then finding time to be able to do something different. Whereas if your child's coming up to you and saying, look, I can do this. Or I've had an instance where one of the children in my class, their parents' car broke down when they were on a day trip. And he could notice that his dad was getting really stressed. And he told the whole class how he taught his parents how to do 3-5 breathing in for the count of three and out for the count of five, and how that it made everybody feel happier and then able to cope with what was happening. And you just think that's so empowering when you've got a 6 or 7-year-old being able to have what could have been a really stressful situation for him to be in, seeing his parents distressed and worried, having a tool that he's able to say, do you know what, we can all do this and we'll all feel better. And he was so proud of himself when he came into school the next week and told us all about it. And I think that's the power of doing things like this with children, is the fact that actually if we can empower children to go, do you know what, you've got these great tools, can you share them with your parents? Then I think that's a great way to be able to support parents as well, because then they're seeing the strategies that their children are learning in school as well.
And that's the credit to you and your staff for doing that and teaching that child how to do that, for them to then be able to take that home and do it with their parents. That's incredible. That's what we do as teachers. We want to empower our students to go
Yeah,
off and go out to the big wide world and teach them the strategies that we've taught them in schools to help them improve their well-being. So that's really good. That's really impressive, actually.
yeah,
So on your website, it says that your inner drive to do the best job possible at times has pushed you too far.
yeah.
So how has your career impacted on your well-being?
So I always want to try and do the best that I can, which I think lots of us do. And at the time, my children were quite young, were younger than they are now. My children are 16 and 18 now, so that we're at a new phase at the moment. But well, they were younger and they were both needing lots of support at home. And things at work, I just was trying to do the best job that I possibly could, and it was getting too much. And I found that I was changing a display, and I took the same backing paper and border down twice because I kept putting the same thing back up. And I was like, what is going on? You've got to the point where things are, you're not functioning properly because you're doing things which aren't how you should do them. So I went and got help. I went and spoke to my head teacher and said that I was struggling. Actually went to the doctor as well and spoke to them. And actually that's when I started doing the tapping, was around that time. I found it made a real difference. So I think the main advice I would give anybody is actually, if you're struggling, go and speak to somebody, because everybody struggles at some point. Everybody has a time when it's all too much, and there's times when you can be absolutely fine, and then the same things can happen the following week, and you find you can't cope with it, and that's really normal. And I think it's about normalizing it and going, do you know what, we all feel like this sometimes. We all need a bit of help sometimes, and just go and speak to somebody in school that you trust and just say, do you know what, I'm struggling, or I'm finding this really hard. Could you help me? I can't see the wood through the trees at the moment. I just need a bit of help.
That's the thing. We, as teachers, we think we have to cope with everything and just get through everything because we should be able to do it. But of course not. Like, we are only human. Things happen and we need help. I mean, I was in that situation at my old school where I just took everything. Everything just sort of went. I had too much on my shoulders, basically. And rather than opening up and talking to my head of department, I kept it all in because I thought everyone can see me getting on with things, and they think, oh yeah, she Tam's really good at this. She can do this. I didn't want to look bad, so I sort of kept it all in, and it just sort of had to end up leaving it, unfortunately, because I just couldn't cope with the situation and everything. But that was because I piled everything on top. Nothing to do with school. It was just because I took on way too much. I didn't speak to anybody. So you're right. We need to open up and talk to people that are close to us, our colleagues, our friends, anybody, family, just to help us to deal with certain things and learn strategies like you're teaching us today with the tapping to help us with our well-being. So as an assistant head, what support do you put in place for your staff in school to help them with their well-being?
So I'm really fortunate. The school I work in puts well-being forefront and has done and always has done. So I think that makes a massive difference. So we've got a well-being culture within our school, and I know that's not the case for everybody.
No.
So that's what's really hard, is that I know that I'm really lucky in the school that I'm in. I know that actually well-being is a priority, and because there's a well-being culture in school, then it's okay for us to be checking in with people. So part of will be actually, do you know, are you okay today? You don't quite seem yourself, or do you want to have a chat? So some of it is just really low level, just checking in, seeing if people are okay. It's also about knowing when people are having a hard time. We all have times where you kind of put your school face on, don't you? You kind of try and leave things at the door, but actually sometimes you can't. Sometimes actually things in life are too big, and it's about being open and listening to people when they would like to talk. being able to offer support that we've got in school, but also sometimes being able to signpost people to other things we've got. So like we've got some wellbeing insurance, so that we've got different services that we can access within our school, which I know lots of schools buy into those kind of things. But there's also signposting people to where else they can go if they need to have support or they need help. Or on sometimes even saying, actually, have you considered going to the doctor and talking about things? So depending on what's going on for people, changes to what I'm doing. So as I said, we've run like lots of mindfulness courses. I've also run tapping sessions, like group tapping sessions for staff, but also one-on-one sessions if people have asked for it or would like it. During lockdown, lots of our staff and everybody, I think, found it really difficult to start with, didn't they? So the first lockdown, it was just like a big shock. And in education, things changed so rapidly, and it was a really unsettling and unnerving time. So that's when I started recording tapping videos, and I recorded them. I was recording them for our staff, and they ended up going on YouTube because that was the easiest way to be able to share with people.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So that was the easier. That's how I started doing the tapping videos, was actually during lockdown as a way of trying to support our staff with what was happening at the time. Yeah.
In my current school, actually, we're quite big on wellbeing. So we've got a wellbeing group of individual staff that lead wellbeing in our school. And I'd actually love for you to be able to do like a remote session with my school, actually.
That
So we
would
will
be
have a chat
amazing.
about that
Yeah,
after.
we can definitely do that. Yeah.
That'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
So how do you think are the common challenges that your early careers teachers are facing in school?
I think there's the pressure. I think that the early career framework is high. There's a lot of early career framework that teachers need to be able to do. I think it's also the support that they get within their school. So I think it's all of a sudden, like we all remember when we first started teaching, and it's a shock, isn't it? Because you go through your training and you know that you're having to work really hard for your training. And then the reality of the job kind of hits somewhere, doesn't it, in the first couple of years about, oh, actually, it's this intense lots of the time. And it's about having ways to be able to manage and to be able to cope. And again, speaking to mentors or speaking to people who are from your appropriate body for wherever you're getting your training from, and speaking to other members of staff in your school to say, do you know what, I'm not sure about this, or what do I need to prioritize? Because I think that's what's really hard, is to knowing when you're in your beginning of your career, what do you prioritize? There's so many things that you need to do. Where do you prioritize? What do you do first? And I think it's also really important to make sure that you find things that you like and do for yourself, because I think it's easy to lose yourself at the beginning when you first start teaching, because you give it your all and then there's nothing left. So it's about thinking about actually what is it that you really enjoy that you can make sure that you find time to do as well, so that it doesn't feel like teaching is all consuming.
Of course, yes. And what feedback have your ECTs or new starters or new teachers, what feedback have they given you in terms of the tapping and the well-being that you've put in place in your schools?
Yeah, so I think it's about having, as you said, strategies, and also recognizing that it doesn't have to be a massive thing that you do. You can do a mindfulness activity or a tapping practice in 5 minutes and feel very different in 5 minutes time to how you could be feeling before you start it. And I think it's just recognizing that actually it doesn't have to be really time consuming, but once you have a small bank of things which you like and that work for you, then you can use them whenever you need to. And it's also a way of, I think as teachers, we're so good at beating ourselves up and overthinking situations. So when things don't quite go as we'd hoped, either with a lesson or with behaviour, that with the incident or something that we've dealt with, or with talking to a parent, when things haven't gone as ideally as you would like them to, then I think teachers are the worst at beating themselves up and overthinking about it. And it's about having different strategies to do you know what I did? If you can calm yourself down before you speak to a parent or you speak to a child who is doing something which you know is either dangerous or is triggering or is getting to the point where it's too much, if you can calm yourself down before you deal with the incident, you know that you are making the best choices in that time. So if you know that you've gone into the situation as calmly as possible, then you know that you'll have done what's best for the child and for the rest of the children in that moment. And therefore, afterwards, there's less to beat yourself up about because you know you've done the best you can. So by having it's kind of doing it proactively as well. So knowing that I know that if I need to phone a parent or speak to a parent after school, I'll make sure that I take some deep breaths, or I'll make sure that I tap, or that I'll make sure that I do like a stop practice where you stop, take a breath, observe how you're feeling, and then proceed before speaking to them, so that I know that I'm as calm as possible. If I'm meeting them face to face, I'll make sure that I approach them smiling, because actually that's going to make a difference to how I feel and how they are. It's all these little, and it's so tiny, it's like tiny little things. But when you do them consciously, when you're aware of the fact that actually I'm consciously going to do this because I know it will make a difference to the interaction, then afterwards, you know that you've done everything you can. You know you've done your best. So therefore, you've got less to beat yourself up about.
Of course, that's such valuable information, because you're so right. We have to calm ourselves before we go into a situation, especially with children, because we end up snapping at children and shouting, and that just exacerbates and worsens the situation. Whereas if we use the strategies that you're teaching your staff to help us calm down and just think and make the right choices, we're going to be able to go into these situations in a better mind frame and deal with them in a more positive way. So I reckon the culture in your school must be really, really positive. Then walking around school, the kids must be happy, the staff probably happier, because they've got these different strategies that they can use and implement lessons.
I mean, nowhere's perfect, you know. Nowhere's perfect, and with the best will in the world, everybody has a day when it doesn't go quite as to plan. So I'm not trying to paint a picture that our school is perfect. It's not. Every school is a work in progress, and everybody's got things going on at different points. But I think it's just as you say, being aware of the strategies, being aware of different things that you can do, can make 100%. A real difference.
So you've got a book coming out this summer, haven't you?
Yes.
Tell us about your book.
So my book is called What Happy Teachers Do, and it's a 3-step self-care guide to help you inside and outside the classroom, because teaching is, as a teacher, you're not just a teacher, you're also a person. And it's why I want you to be able to have self-care strategies that help with the whole of your life, not just in teaching. So it's coming out with Hay House the 6th of August. It's full of practical ideas about how you can use self-care strategies, mindfulness and tapping to be able to lead the life that you want to be able to lead more with, and still enjoy teaching and still get the most out of your teaching that you're doing. So it's really exciting. I'm very excited that the book's coming out.
And are there any specific techniques that you can share with us that we can do right now? You've gone through a few of the tapping techniques with us earlier.
Yeah, so I think we talked briefly about doing things as a ECT that bring you joy. One of the things that I've got in the book is about writing a list of the things that bring you joy. And I think that's something that everybody can do quite simply. So just writing down a list, give yourself 7 minutes, write at the top of the piece of paper, things that bring me joy, and list down the things that you have that bring you joy in your life. And it could be really tiny things. It could be that actually you really like the crunch of the snow on your feet, or you really like the rustle of the leaves when you're walking in. So it can be really small things, and thinking about actually in different seasons what brings you joy, using your senses to think about actually what do you enjoy smelling, what do you enjoy seeing, what is it, what experiences do you really bring you joy. And writing it, I've said for 7 minutes, because actually you'll have your initial ideas that come out, and then your ideas may start to dry up. And if that does, just write again things that bring me joy, and then give yourself a bit more time to think. And you may need more than 7 minutes, because you may get on a roll and you just have loads of ideas.
Yeah.
And once you've got your list, then think, right, actually, well, what of these things can I do today? What can I do in the next week? How many of these things can I make sure that I incorporate into my week? as teachers, we plan for everything. We have plans in place for all of our lessons, for everything we're doing. And as you say, if you've got a family, then that's a whole nother load of planning that you're doing to make sure that everything juggles. But the thing that always drops off is our own self-care.
Yeah.
And that's the thing which often ends up coming last. But actually, that's why I'm asking you to write your list about things that bring you joy and to think, right, where can I put those things into my week so that I know that every day I've got something that brings me joy, something that is just for you. And it could just be for a couple of minutes. It could be that when you get in from work, you sit down, you have an uninterrupted cup of tea. It could be the tiniest thing. But how often are cups of tea left cold throughout the day? Because
Very frustrated.
so it can be the smallest thing, but actually it brings you joy just in the fact that it's just like, actually, I'm going to really enjoy this. Or I'm going to have an uninterrupted shower or bath, or I'm going to have time to read a couple of pages of the book that I'm really enjoying at the moment. I'm going to phone my friend who I haven't spoken to for a couple of weeks. And it's about giving yourself permission to have time for you to be able to look after yourself. So I think that's an easy takeaway that everybody can do straight away. I've got a website, michelleauton.com, and on there's free meditations, there's links to tapping videos and mindfulness videos that you can try. All of them are free. So you could have a go at that straight away. That's something which actually, if you want to experience tapping, then you can just watch the video and tap along, and they're quite easy to follow. So that's something else that people can do straight away.
That's fantastic, because I work in an SEN school, and during the day, we incorporate these mini sessions to help our students regulate, to help break up the day. For example, I do cosmic yoga with my students on a daily basis. But I think I'm going to log into your website when we come back after half term and start doing some tapping and teaching them a bit of tapping that they can hopefully do in lessons, even when they're starting to feel a bit triggered or frustrated. And that can be a way to help them self-regulate during the day, at any point in the day when they're feeling triggered during the day.
Tapping is a really great way of getting everyone's attention as well. So I will use it in class or in whole class, even in whole school assemblies. If something's got really exciting and actually you need to lower the energy and just want everybody a bit calmer, everyone do this. Tapping the top of your head. Everyone tap here on your eyebrow points. Everyone tap your collarbone points. And within 30 seconds, the energy in the room is completely different because everybody is feeling calmer. So it's a really great attention grabber, but also just to calm the energy down really quickly. So yeah, tapping is really useful for lots of different ways. So you can definitely do it on more of a personal level, working on what you want to be working on, but also as a calming strategy within classes. It's really good. We had on Thursday, it poured a rain all day, so the children were inside for break time and lunchtime, and they had so much energy and they needed to be able to do things. So, like you said, we did some whole class yoga in the classroom, but also we did some tapping and we did some mindfulness and some listening to sounds as a way of helping the children to regulate themselves. I think it's really important.
I think what you're teaching is so valuable. So thank you so much, Michelle, because these kids are going to grow up and they're going to then do this with their own children or their own workplaces. And hopefully in the future, they'll be able to deal with mental health in a much better way in terms of individually. Because some people can be really scared to go and ask for help. Some people can be really worried to go to doctors, to leave the house, to go and get any help. By teaching people strategies that they can learn at a young age, and then be able to take that through their life as they get older and older, to be able to do that at home and teach their own family. I think that's incredible. That's going to help a lot of people with a lot of mental health problems that they may be having, anxiety that they may be having, or the feelings of burnout and feeling that they're not good enough, for example. And that will help them to regulate their emotions and give them strategy to be able to start to see that there are amazing things that you can do to help you with your own mindset, as well as not just psychologically, but physiologically as well. What sort of physiological impacts does tapping actually have on an individual?
So it does help to calm your nervous system. So it's been proven to help calm your nervous system. So actually it's things like often people will complain about having like pain in their shoulders or have like stomach aches, but often it's related to stress and anxiety. And stress can cause so many different symptoms. It can interrupt our sleep, and that can have a massive impact on how we feel. And so often you hear teachers talk about the fact that actually the beginning of term, their sleep patterns completely go out the window because
Yes.
they're thinking all the time. They've gone from having their brains being much calmer in the holiday time to coming back to school and things feeling quite busy, and therefore their sleep is being interrupted. So being able to use tapping and mindfulness, both of them together, can really improve your sleep and can really make a difference to sleep patterns and how you then feel in your body. But if we don't get the right sleep, if we don't look after our bodies, then actually, or we ignore the signals our bodies are giving us, then they give us bigger, stronger signals. We'll end up getting ill. We'll end up having these pains in our bodies. And actually, we can address those by using tapping, because actually, often we have different things that which are going on because our bodies are trying to tell us, do you know what, you need to slow down. You need to be able to look after yourself. And I think it's really important that teachers have all these strategies, because teachers always are looking after everybody else. It's the nature of the job. And for teachers to be able to have different ways in which they can look after themselves, which doesn't feel like another thing to do, but it's something that actually, if you do it for a little while, you go, actually, do you know what? I do feel so much better. I do feel that everything's okay. And there were times when I was writing this book when actually there was lots going on and everything was busy. And I questioned myself for feeling like a fraud. It's like, how can I be writing the book about this when actually at the moment my own well-being isn't the best it should be? But I used the strategies in the book. I made sure I was tapping. I made sure I did mindfulness, and it makes a difference. I upped my self-care, and I was like, actually, no, this is okay. It's okay to be honest. It's okay to say, of course, just because you do this, everything isn't going to be amazing, but it's going to help your mindset and how you feel about everything. So yeah, I think it's really important that teachers have those tools to be able to choose what works for them. And then they can, if teachers don't understand themselves how it feels for them, then they're not going to be able to do it with children.
No. No, you have to be able to do it yourself.
The value of it. You need to know yourself how different it can make you feel.
And especially that Sunday night dread that teachers feel. So that this is something they can do Sunday evening.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Make a huge difference. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Because we all feel it, don't we, as teachers? It doesn't matter how many years we've been teaching, that Sunday night dread, thought, we've got to go back to work tomorrow. But just being able to use those strategies to calm yourself down. Yeah. And then you have better sleep, and then you wake up feeling better, and it all sort of ripple effect, isn't it?
Yeah. And also doing something you really like on a Sunday.
Yes.
That's like, this is a day that you can really enjoy. What is it you'd really like to do? And I know we all want to be prepared, and I know we want to be organised, but actually it's a balance, isn't it? It's making sure that you have the good stuff in there as well.
100%. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. It's been amazing talking to you. You've taught me things that I'm going to go away and do today. First thing I'm going to do is write down for 7 minutes all the things that I enjoy doing, because I'm terrible. I come home from work and I look after my son, I'm cooking dinner, I'm thinking about their lessons, and by the time I've actually sat down and had time for myself, it's 9:30 and I'm tired. I want to go sleep. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. So I'm going to start implementing those things from today. I've got a week as well to get it all. So I want to make it more habitual. So that's something that's really important, isn't it? If it's something that's a routine to you, you're more likely to do it. Yeah. When you're busy in a term.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to do things when you first wake up in the morning. So when you first wake up, thinking about 3 things you're grateful for is a great way to get you into a good mindset for the day, about actually, rather than waking up going, oh, I've got to do this, this, and this. Actually, what 3 things am I grateful for today? And that can make a massive difference as well.